Kumasi never truly slept. Its nights hummed with gospel music, drifting from open windows, taxis honking their way through crowded streets, and the voices of street vendors calling out their last sales of the day. Beneath the bustling vibrancy lay an undercurrent of quiet desperation. For every success story, a business flourishing, a marriage restored, there were whispers of prayers unanswered, dreams unrealized, and struggles unseen. Faith wasn't just a belief in Kumasi. It was the thread that held the city together, and no one understood this better than Pastor Kojo Danso, founder of Light of Glory Ministry, a church that had, in 2 short years, become the city's spiritual epicenter. Danso's ministry was synonymous with miracles. The blind saw again. Women who had been barren for decades cradled babies in their arms. Businesses boomed after his anointed prayers. His sermons, laced with fire and conviction, drew thousands every Sunday. People came not just to worship, but to witness the supernatural power that seemed to emanate from the man himself. But beneath the polished pews and the towering white walls of Light of Glory Ministry lay a truth darker than the midnight sky. A truth that, when revealed, would shatter lives, crush faith, and leave Kumasi forever changed. 2 years before his rise to fame, Pastor Kojo Danso was a struggling preacher with more ambition than answers. His small congregation met in a rented classroom that leaked when it rained. His sermons were heartfelt, but lacked the fire that brought people to their feet. And though he prayed with all his might, nothing seemed to happen. No healings, no breakthroughs, just a few faithful members who believed out of habit more than conviction. One Sunday evening, after a particularly disheartening service, Danso sat alone, staring at the empty collection basket. His prayers felt hollow, his faith faltering. "God," he whispered, "I've given you everything. Why won't you bless me?" As he wallowed in despair, a name reached his ears. Nana Kofi Bonsam, a Juju man from the remote village of Kojo Krom. The name was spoken in hushed tones by other struggling pastors, who whispered of his ability to open doors for ministries that seemed destined to fail. At first, Danso dismissed the idea. He was a man of God after all. How could he even consider such a thing? But as the weeks passed and his pews remained empty, desperation gnawed at him. He rationalized, "If God isn't helping me, perhaps this is his way of testing me. Perhaps this is the answer I've been praying for." The journey to Kojo Krom was a test of resolve. Danso traveled alone, navigating narrow dirt roads that twisted through dense forests. By the time he reached the village, night had fallen, and the air was thick with the hum of crickets and the scent of burning wood. Nana's shrine was unlike anything Danso had ever seen. The walls were lined with bones, charms, and symbols that seemed to move in the flickering candlelight. The air felt heavy, charged with an unseen energy. Nana Kofi Bonsam, draped in crimson robes, sat cross-legged before a small fire, his sharp eyes locking onto Danso. "You seek power," Nana said, his voice low and commanding. It wasn't a question. Danso hesitated. I want to grow my ministry. I want to do God's work." Nana smirked. "And you think God's work needs the help of the gods?" Danso faltered, but eventually nodded. "I'm willing to do what it takes." The ritual that followed would haunt Danso for years to come. He was made to chant words he didn't understand as Nana poured a mixture of blood and herbs over a burning pot. At the end, Nana handed him a pouch filled with charms. "Bury this beneath your altar," he instructed. "Your church will flourish. But remember, the gods demand their due." The results were almost immediate. Within weeks of burying the pouch beneath his altar, things began to change. During a Sunday service, a blind woman declared she could see again after Danso prayed for her. A man with a broken leg walked out of the church without his crutches. The story spread like wildfire. By the end of the month, Light of Glory Ministry was packed. People stood outside the church, craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the man who had the power to channel heaven's miracles. The once struggling pastor now held court in an expanding auditorium with polished floors, air conditioning, and a state-of-the-art sound system. But behind closed doors, Danso wrestled with his conscience. The miracles, while undeniably real, didn't feel like his. Each time he stepped behind the pulpit, he felt the weight of the pouch beneath his feet, a constant reminder of the price he had agreed to pay. As the church grew, so did Danso's arrogance. He began to see himself as untouchable, not just a servant of God, but a man above reproach. He relished the attention, the admiration, and the power he wielded over his congregation. And soon, he began to abuse it. It started during counseling sessions. Women, desperate for deliverance or blessings, would come to him seeking guidance. Danso would tell them that their deliverance required sacrifice, sometimes financial, sometimes physical. Naomi Ampadu, a beautiful young wife who came to him seeking prayer for her failing marriage, was one of his victims. Danso assured her that her husband's infidelity was caused by a spiritual curse, and that only through intimacy with the man of God could she be freed. Naomi, torn between disbelief and fear, reluctantly agreed, believing she was obeying divine instructions. Her husband would later find out and confront Danso, but his accusations were dismissed as jealousy by loyal congregants. Danso's moral corruption didn't end there. He misused church funds, purchasing a luxury car and a lavish home in a gated community, all while telling his congregation that their donations were going toward building a second church branch. Loyalists defended him fiercely, convinced that these blessings were proof of God's favor. But whispers of his misdeeds began to spread. Kwaku Amoa, a trusted church worker, abruptly quit, muttering, "The spirits here are not of God." Danso dismissed Kwaku's departure as a betrayal, but it unnerved him nonetheless. One of the turning points came during a Sunday service when a woman collapsed, screaming, "There's something evil in this place." Her words sent shockwaves through the congregation. Some dismissed her as mentally unstable, but others began to question what lay beneath the surface of Danso's ministry. Ajua Frimpong, a widow who had given everything she had to the church, began to notice cracks in the facade. Despite sowing countless seeds of faith, her financial situation remained dire. She started to wonder, could it all be a lie? The tension was palpable during the church's 2-year anniversary service. Thousands packed the auditorium, their hands raised in worship as the choir's powerful voices filled the room. Cameras streamed the event live to viewers across Kumasi and beyond. Pastor Kojo Danso, dressed in an immaculate white suit, took the stage, his presence commanding. He gripped the microphone with practiced ease, a smile playing on his lips as he surveyed the adoring crowd. "This is the day the Lord has made," he declared, his voice booming. The congregation erupted into cheers. "Today, we celebrate the blessings of God's favor upon this ministry. Chains will be broken, lives will be transformed, and the glory of the Lord will descend upon us." But just as the crowd roared its approval, the doors of the auditorium flew open with a deafening bang. The congregation turned in unison, the clapping and cheers dying instantly. Striding down the aisle was Nana Kofi Bonsam, the clapping and cheers dying instantly. Striding down the aisle was Nana Kofi Bonsam, his crimson robes billowing around him like a storm. 2 men trailed behind him, each carrying a shovel slung over their shoulders. The room was deathly silent, save for the steady clack of Nana's staff striking the tiled floor with each step. Danso froze. For the first time in years, he was speechless. His confident smile vanished, replaced by a look of sheer panic. Beads of sweat formed on his brow as Nana ascended the steps to the pulpit. "You cannot hide from the gods, Kojo Danso," Nana thundered, his voice echoing through the vast auditorium. "What? What is the meaning of this?" Danso stammered, backing away from the pulpit. His eyes darted nervously around the room, searching for support among his loyalists. But even they looked uncertain, their murmurs growing louder with each passing moment. "This is not a house of God," Nana continued, his voice dripping with disdain. "It is a shrine built on deceit and greed, powered by forces you begged for in secret." He turned to the men with the shovels. Dig. The first strike of the shovel against the floor shattered the silence. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the men began to work, breaking through the polished tiles near the altar. Danso stumbled forward, his hands raised. "Stop this madness!" he shouted, his voice cracking. "This is a sacred space. You have no right." "Silence!" Nana roared, raising his staff. The authority in his voice silenced even Danso's most loyal followers. The congregation watched in stunned silence as the men continued to dig. Each strike of the shovel felt like a blow to the foundation of their faith. Finally, the men paused. One reached down and pulled a small, dirt-covered pouch from the hole. He handed it to Nana, who untied it with deliberate slowness. He held the contents aloft, bones, powders, and charms bound together with red thread. A collective gasp swept through the room. "This," Nana declared, his voice ringing with finality, "is the source of his power. Not prayer, not fasting, not God, this." The congregation erupted into chaos. Some screamed, while others wept openly. A few ran for the doors, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Ajoa Frimpong sat frozen in her seat, her hands trembling. Her mind raced as the pieces fell into place. The empty promises, the constant demands for money, the growing unease she had felt but ignored. It had all been a lie. Danso collapsed to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. But his confession was drowned out by the cacophony of anger and despair that filled the room. By the next morning, videos of the confrontation had gone viral. News outlets across Ghana reported the scandal, dubbing it the Great Kumasi Deception. Loyalists of Light of Glory Ministry flocked to social media, defending their pastor and claiming that the entire incident was a setup orchestrated by enemies of the church. But for many, the evidence was irrefutable. The buried charm, the admissions of guilt, and the testimonies of former congregants painted a damning picture. Among those who came forward was Naomi Ampadu, whose story sent shockwaves through Kumasi. In a televised interview, she recounted how Danso had exploited her during a counseling session. "He told me that my marriage was under a spiritual attack," she said, her voice shaking. "He said the only way to break the curse was through intimacy with him, as the anointed man of God. I believed him. I thought I was obeying God." Naomi's story opened the floodgates. More women stepped forward, sharing similar experiences. Some described how Danso had preyed on their desperation, promising them miracles in exchange for money or personal favors. Others revealed how he had manipulated them into silence, using their faith as a weapon against them. Danso was arrested within days, charged with fraud, abuse of power, and financial mismanagement. His loyalists staged protests outside the courthouse, holding signs that read, "Touch not my anointed." But inside the courtroom, the evidence against him was overwhelming. Former church workers testified about staged miracles and the embezzlement of church funds. Naomi's testimony about her counseling session brought tears to the eyes of many in the gallery, while Nana Kofi Bonsom's account of the ritual left the courtroom in stunned silence. "I gave him power," Nana told the court, "but he let greed consume him. The gods do not forgive betrayal." In a rare moment of vulnerability, Danso broke down on the stand. "I just wanted to help people," he sobbed. "I wanted to show them God's power, but I lost my way." The scandal left an indelible mark on Kumasi. The once packed auditorium of Light of Glory Ministry was shuttered, its doors chained and its walls covered in graffiti. Congregants scattered, some abandoning church altogether, while others sought solace in smaller, more humble places of worship. For Ajoa Frimpong, the journey to healing was long and painful. She found a new church, a small, community-focused congregation where the pastor preached about accountability and humility. Slowly, she rebuilt her life, finding strength in her children and in her rediscovered faith. She joined a support group for women who had been exploited by Danso, where she shared her story and found comfort in the solidarity of others who had been similarly deceived. 2 years later, Kumasi had moved on, but the story of Pastor Kojo Danso remained a cautionary tale. His name was invoked in sermons as a warning against the seduction of power and the perils of unchecked ambition. Danso himself, now serving a lengthy prison sentence, spent his days writing letters to his former congregants, begging for forgiveness. For Ajoa, the shadows of the past had finally lifted. One Sunday morning, as she stood in her new church, singing a hymn of hope, the sunlight streaming through the wooden windows warmed her face. She smiled.